Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I'm going to talk about the physical books that I read in January. As we know, I have read quite a lot of books this year, more than I anticipated, and as I haven't been regularly updating this channel in a long while due to just disappearing for a month, then getting ill, and then my iPhone dying, we've got a lot of books to talk about. The first book that I want to talk about is the first book that I read this year. Can you cast your mind back to 10 weeks ago when New Year was happening and people were all happy and glad and Charlie still had a hole in his head? So I read a book called If Cats Disappeared from Our World, and this was a Christmas present from my cousin. If Cats Disappeared from the World is about this man who discovers that he has an incurable disease. And then the devil appears to him and tells him that he can get an extra day if he gets rid of something from the world. And so then we get this philosophical conversation, really, in which this man gets rid of something from the world each day and how that affects the world and how they deal with the disappearance of that object or that thing that you think is really somewhat inconsequential and doesn't mean much to you, but when you take it away from the equation it actually meant a lot and you realise that you miss it. It's amazing to see what is important to a character. It was a great way to talk about a character and their past and the relationships that they have made and lost due to their own grief and their own struggles and how they have ended up at a certain point in their life. I think that the writer captured something really great in such a small amount of pages. It leaves you with a lot of thoughts to unpick. It gets somewhat religious and you have to almost cast all this aside and begin to imagine a devil and these choices that you could make and just what you would do if you were in the same sort of situation. And yeah, I appreciated the writing here, I appreciated the questions that we were getting as a reader, and I think that it was a great way to start off the year. The next book that I read was The Snow Merchant by Sam Gayton. This is a children's book that was released quite a few years back, and I meant to read it then, and it's just been getting pushed back and pushed back. Indeed, I'd meant to read it in December, so reading it in January was not in my plans at all. And this book follows a young girl who lives in an inn. Her father gambles a lot, her mother's been missing since she was born, and this man appears at her door one day calling himself the Snow Merchant, and he sells her snow. Soon there's an almost fool's gold type situation, and you realise that the Snow Merchant just might know where this young girl's mother is. And then you have these two very horrible ladies who are staying at the inn who believe that the snow is theirs, and there's this just race across the country involving like almost pirates, and it was full of that magic that I like to see in children's fiction. It left me feeling somewhat discombobulated, which is something that I look for. I know I don't use that word in the right context, but that's how I like a children's book to make me feel, and this was a spectacular fate of writing for children. I think that if you have a middle grade reader in your life, this would be an appropriate book for them if they like magical books, because this just really hit all the boxes for me. It reminded me of Diana Wynne Jones, and I was really pleased with that. Next, I read The Mystery of Three Quarters by Sophie Hannah. Now, if you know, I have read all of Sophie Hannah's Poirot books now, and I have not liked any of them until this book. This book, I feel as though she finally captured Poirot. She hit the nail on the head, and she got it. Yes, it was a bit weird how Poirot managed to figure it out, but it was this confusing, weird mystery that tangled everywhere, and I just thought, yes, this is it, this is great. The writer, I know that Sophie Hannah knows what she's doing, I know that she's a great crime writer, I just didn't think that she was getting it with these books, and with this one, definitely got it, 100% behind her, and if there is another one, I'll read it. Hopefully won't be disappointed by that one, but yeah. Then, I read The Redbreast by Jo Nesbo. Now, these books have been around for years, over a decade. since they first got translated in England, and I've never gone near them. They're crime fiction. I've avoided them for such a long time. They're really thick books. A customer I've known for a long while came into the shop and recommended I read them. She's looking for the film of one of the books. And so I thought, you know what, I've got time. And I started reading it, and that was it. I'd read the first book in 2 days, and it was over 500 pages. It was a splendid crime novel. They're dark, they go all over the place, they're weird. I read that book, and then I went and I ordered the next one from the library. And I'm trying to ration myself to 2 of the Jo Nesbo books a month, because they're just fantastic. So I read the Redbreast and I read Nemesis. Nemesis wasn't the best book in the world, but yeah, it was because I'd had such a good experience with the Redbreast, in that book dealt with Nazis in the 1940s and the 1990s. It dealt with an alcoholic detective I was being introduced to for the first time. It dealt with his relationships, the decline of his relationships with everyone in his life, his failing position in the police force. It was just mind-blowing to see all of this, and you know, they're not the best books in the world, they're not the most well written, and sometimes it's just really great, thrilling read, and I recommend those books. Then I had The Murder of Roger Ackroyd by Agatha Christie, and considering I just really enjoyed the Sophie Hannah book, it seems almost sinful to say that I hated this book. I've known about a certain Agatha Christie book for years, and I've known how it turns out, but I didn't know that it was this book. But on page 40 of The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, I realised who the murderer was, and then I stuck around the 250 pages just to get told what I'd already figured out 250 pages before, and it was just terrible for me. I shouldn't be able to have figured it out that quickly. I've never seen the adaptation, I've never read this one before, and I figured it out and I just thought, how do people not see this? So yeah, I was disappointed. I was very disappointed. In fact, I told everyone how disappointed I was. I just meet people and say, do you know about The Murder of Roger Ackroyd? Don't read it. Don't bother with it. I figured it out on page 40. Wasn't a fan. Then I read People I Want to Punch in the Throat by Mann. Now I thought that this book was going to be like Furiously Happy, because Jenny Lawson talked about this book. Whilst it was funny, I just wanted more from the book. I felt as though it was great, it was very anecdotal, but I just didn't get the humour that I get from reading Furiously Happy and all these other books that I found humorous. Definitely funny, definitely got that American humour in there, but just wasn't for me. Then I read the Discworld graphic novels, which has The Colour of Magic and The Light Fantastic in there, and it just puts I was just wanting a reminder of those 2 stories, and yeah. Came out years ago. I think they were originally released as like comic books, but they just weren't for me. No, they did not capture me in any way. They just didn't do it for me, really. Or a bit all over the place, similar to my videos, but you know, I make the choice to make them like this. Oh Lord. Then I read Sightwitch by Susan Dennard. Now, this is what Dennard calls book 2.5 in the Witchlands series. This doesn't follow Safi or Isolde or any of the characters we come to. It follows Ryber and Cullen, who we've met previously, and I think it goes back into the past. It's a really strange one. It seems to be a bit all over the place, really, but it was fantastic. If you're a fan of the Witchlands, and I am, if you're a fan of Dennard's writing, then it was nice to have this book there to learn more about the world, to learn more about a part of the world that we haven't seen before, and this character who is really more of a bit role than anything else. And I liked hearing more, well, I liked reading more about the history of this world. I don't think it's the best book in the world, but if you're a fan of the series, you do need to read this book before you go into reading Blood Witch, which I just finished a few days ago. But yeah, I was pleased to read Sightwitch. I wasn't so pleased with all of the books that I've read this year, but I'm glad that whilst it was there, whilst you need to have read the series to have read this book, then get on it. If you know, maybe this is the young adult fantasy series I'll recommend to everyone. But that's it for now. They are the physical books that I read in January. I'm missing out poetry for now because I'm going to talk about the poetry that I read in a different video. But if you've read any of these books and would like to discuss them, please feel free to do so in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, that is all.